Welcome to the Daily Insider here on Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers for Friday, December 17, 2021. A very entertaining, to say the least, Thursday night game last night. The Chiefs knock off the Chargers in overtime, and big win for Kansas City. And now they are in control of the AFC West, and head-scratching loss for the Chargers. We're going to talk about that coming up in just a few moments. Vegas Insider NFL handicapper Paul Bovi will join us in just a few minutes to talk about that game, as well as looking ahead to the weekend inside of the NFL. But before we get to Paul, I want to tell you about BetMGM. They are the king of sports books, and I've told you about them all the time. New players only, a great deal. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line, and if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Must be 21 years or older to play and eligible in the following states: Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. only. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sports books. All right, let's get to Paul Bovi, who has had a great season in the NFL, 49-38, plus 700, and he's third in totals this year. And got a lot to talk about with Paul. Paul, good to see you again. And your thoughts on what unfolded last night? The Chiefs end up beating the Chargers in overtime, 34-28. Brandon Staley, I know he's trying to be innovative. Is he trying to outthink the room? What did you think about some of the calls on fourth down last night?
Well, certainly I feel he should have taken that first field goal. Kevin, it was the 5-yard line. It wasn't the 1. It wasn't the 2. It was the 5. And I think it really would have set a great tone to get the first points. And remember, if they miss, you can't count on a 3 and out with Patrick Mahomes where they're going to get the ball back at the 50-yard line. So I just think it was a mistake at the outset. Certainly, he could be called into question for the other field goals that he bypassed. And it was an exciting game, and certainly the Chargers deserved a better fate.
Because I look back at some of these situations, I could be a little sold, Paul, on going forward on fourth down. I get from the 5 because you had that great kickoff return. Also didn't help. The guy tripped. That also wasn't helpful because he was gone. He was to the house if he doesn't trip. The second one before the half, Paul, I'm torn on because I get where Staley's coming from and I had the Chargers last night, by the way. I get the touchdown. You're up 21-10. You got the dagger, even though the Chiefs get the ball to start the second half. You come away with nothing. Herbert's pass gets knocked down. What did you think about the one before the half?
Again, certainly up for discussion. He could have taken it, could have taken the points. And, it was just one of those games where it just didn't work out for the Chargers supporters. And as I told you before the broadcast, Kevin, I needed the Chargers to lose the game by 3.5 or less. I also had KC on the money line. I figured it was going to be a close, high-scoring game. And it turned out to be, unfortunately, the Chiefs get the 6 in the overtime. And I think Staley's going to take a lot of heat for this because it was a critical game. Let's face it. It was for first place, and now the Chiefs have control of their own destiny.
And the other thing, too, Paul, when you look at it, that the third one is the one that annoyed me the most. The third going for on fourth down from the 27, you got to kick the field goal there. Like I thought that you would just take the 3, be done with it, and be up 17-10, I think, at that point, or 17-13, I'm not sure. But if you do that, you get the points, you're in good shape. But you didn't, and then you go back to the end and you say, well, you went to overtime. You would have had those 3 points. You wouldn't have gone to overtime. My issue, too, is you keep going for these touchdowns. I get it with the Chiefs and Mahomes. After that first drive, you held them to 2 field goals. They weren't doing much. So at least you didn't have to go touchdown for touchdown with the Chiefs.
Listen, Kevin, I agree. The Chiefs have not been that dynamic on offense this year. I mean, the Broncos held them to 150 yards after the first 2 drives on that in that primetime game. They haven't been great. So I think that Patrick Mahomes has a reputation, but he's had some hard times this year. There's been some inconsistencies, and there were inconsistencies in the first half. He missed a few very easy throws But you know what? Cream rises to the top, and when it counted, he took the Chiefs to pay dirt, and they get the win. So credit Patrick Mahomes. Hopefully the Chargers can recoup from this and make the playoffs and make some noise and get a chance to take on the Chiefs again. Maybe they'll get revenge.
And Mahomes played great. Tyreek Hill and Kelsey, I mean, they're like unstoppable, it feels like at times. So they played very well. Let's look ahead now to the weekend, Paul. Tomorrow, you have this matchup of the Las Vegas Raiders and whoever's going to suit up for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, this thing with COVID, it's just crazy, wiping out the Browns. Baker Mayfield among the players that have tested positive, and now you have Case Keenum in there. You have Nick Mullins starting at quarterback. This line has obviously flipped. The Raiders have not had COVID issues. What are your thoughts here with this matchup, considering all of Cleveland's shorthandedness at this point?
Well, you mentioned the offense, Kevin, but the defense has taken huge hits. Both safeties could be out, Harrison and Johnson. They've combined for 112 tackles. Cornerback Newsome probably will be out as well. He has 7 passes defended. There's a number of players that really make an impact on defense that are going to likely be out of the lineup here. So I have to feel that the Raiders, despite inclement weather conditions, are going to score some points here because I think they'll take advantage of that defense. And I don't think the Raiders are that bad on offense. Last week, yes, they only scored 9 points against the Chiefs, but they committed they fumbled the ball 4 times. They turned it over, fumbles, repeatedly. And of course, that's not a recipe for success in the NFL. So if they take better care of the football, they should have success here. Hunter Renfrow, by the way, 14 targets last week, 13 receptions. He's really emerged as their top go-to guy. And I think you'll see some points here. Now, the number sits at 38. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Browns scoring because Jarvis Landry is out. Mayfield is out. You've got a number of issues. You got an offensive lineman out. You got a number of issues there. But I do think the Raiders will want to step up here. And they've had some really bad performances, Kevin. And this is a good opportunity for them to shine. So I'm looking for the Raiders to score 24-27. Raiders should get the cover. Game should go over.
All right, let's now go to Sunday, Paul, and the Jets and the Dolphins hooking up in Miami. And good news for the Dolphins, their running backs have cleared the protocol. Myles Gaskin and Savadak Ahmad, they are both now in. You don't know if Jalen Waddle, if he's going to clear it because he was in the protocol yesterday. He could by Saturday afternoon. Jets have been a disaster. Dolphins are on a winning streak off the bye. How much do you think this is going to affect the Dolphins as far as dealing with these COVID issues?
Well, look, Kevin, this is a game where you have to be able to pivot because you mentioned Waddle. Waddle has, I believe, 86 receptions. Then the drop-off is down to 30 for the wideout, Parker, I believe. It's basically outside of Waddle been Gesicki and Smythe, the tight ends. So at that point, if Waddle's out of the lineup and their running game isn't great to begin with Lindsey and Gaskin, I would say you got to grab the points with the Jets and look for a lower scoring game. But, that's a big if right now with respect to Waddle. He has a major impact on the Dolphins' ability to move the football and score points down the field. So it's a hands-off approach right now, pending the status of some of these players, notably Waddle.
How long do you wait for all this, Paul, when you're looking at these games, considering now we're having this COVID blow-up all over the league that no matter how much handicapping you do, you almost have to just wait until you get the green light on some of these players to say, okay, for instance, Jalen Waddle, Saturday afternoon is clear to play. But if he doesn't, then all right, let me jump on this before the line moves. How do you approach all this with the COVID situation?
I just keep abreast of the inactives. In particular, they are announced about an hour and a half before the kickoff on Sunday. And I, at that point, will step in and make some wagers of size because there's guys that are always going to be on the bubble. And now the issue has been exacerbated with this COVID situation. So you have to be able to pivot when it comes to injuries. You have to be able to adapt to the situation in the NFL. And, when it comes to offensive line or defensive backs, these are critical. It's not only the marquee players like the quarterbacks and the running backs. You generally have a sense of whether quarterbacks or running backs are going to play. Of course, sometimes they do announce it late, but generally you have a good sense because it's such an important, a critical thing with respect to an offensive skill player. You're always going to get the news generally beforehand.
So we know how big of a disaster the Jets have been. Meanwhile, across the locker room, across the way in the stadium, the G-men taking on the Cowboys, and Daniel Jones still roughed up. Now you go to Mike Glennon. Cowboys coming off that big win over Washington. It got a little too close for comfort last week. Cowboys were cruising. Washington came back, made it interesting, and then the Cowboys ended up pulling away. What do you think here? Second matchup between these two. All the big Giants got hurt the last time they played Dallas. But do you lay this amount of points with the Cowboys? Or do you think this is one where maybe the Giants hang?
Well, last time they played, it was 44-20, I believe. Dallas wins the game. Dak Prescott puts up very impressive numbers. On the other side for the Giants, Tony goes off, 10 catches. He was well over 100 yards. So I think when you look at this game now, I think it's going to take on a different feel because on the Dallas side, they lose Tyron Smith, the left tackle, and his absence from the lineup is critical to their offense. That he was out in that Denver debacle when they were being shut out 30-0 with a little bit of window dressing at the end. They put up 16 points, and then they only scored 9 against the Chiefs. They did score 43 against the Falcons, but they are the Falcons. The offense definitely takes a hit with him out. And Dak Prescott, questions. He had 235 yards passing against the Saints. The Cowboys had 20 points, all the 20 points before a pick six at the end made it look a lot better than it was. And last week against the Redskins, a lot of turnovers. Dak Prescott had a ridiculously low rating of like 9. He was awful. So I don't have a lot of confidence in this Cowboy offense. And as far as the Giants go, the Giants had 330 yards of offense against the Chargers last week. That was their best in about 7 weeks. And 162 of that came when they were down 37-7. So it's, again, window dressing, fake. If you go back 5 weeks, the Giants had 302 against Carolina. And prior to that, their best output was against the Cowboys with, I believe, 360. This is not a team that's moving the football right now. Too many injuries to the offense, notably the receiving corps. Look to the game under the 44.
All right, now let's take a look, Paul, at some of the later kickoffs on Sunday. The Bengals and the Broncos. Very intriguing game in Denver, considering the Bengals off back-to-back home losses to the Chargers and to San Francisco last week at home. They made a nice comeback. They were down big in that game. They came back, took the lead in overtime, and then San Francisco beat them on the touchdown. But the Bengals still alive in that AFC North. It's still wide open. Denver, we know they got no shot in the AFC West. But the door's still open to maybe be in the playoffs. Broncos have been a little better at home recently. They beat up Detroit team last week. But what do you think here? Can the Bengals rebound going to Denver?
I think they will, Kevin. I think the Broncos are going to have a little bit of trouble on defense if Jones and Harris are out. They combined for 8 sacks. And, of course, they traded Von Miller, who had 4.5, and Weatherby may be out. He has 2 sacks, and that comprises about half of the 30 they have the entire year. And the key with the Bengals is keeping Joe Burrow upright because he's prone to mistakes when he's under a heavy pass rush, which he has been. Chargers sacked him 6 times a couple weeks ago when they were out a couple offensive linemen, notably the center and Rafe. Now, Rafe will be out this week, but Hopkins is back in the lineup. And I think if you keep Joe Burrow upright and give him some pass protection, he should be able to exploit this secondary. And by the way, Kareem Jackson for Denver is questionable, and that would be a huge blow to their defense. I think he's kind of the leader. So I'm looking for Cincinnati to score some points here. I think they'll get the better of it. 7-6, they still have a shot. If the Browns lose and the Ravens lose, which I expect both of those events to occur. So I'm looking for the Bengals to get right back in the race and possibly take this division. I actually bet the Bengals to win the division. So I'm cheering hard for them.
Yeah, we'll see if the Bengals can rebound. They've had a good season. They really have overachieved. And, again, a couple tough losses at home. This is a really big one for them, especially in the wild card race. Now, the Packers and the Ravens, Paul, still don't know Lamar Jackson's status, which obviously dictates Baltimore's offense. But on the flip side, Lamar hasn't been great recently. And I'm not saying that you take Lamar out, they'll be better offensively, but Lamar's numbers have not been good. The Ravens have not scored a lot of points the last 4 or 5 weeks. Now you're facing a Green Bay team that has been on fire since that New Orleans loss to start the season, and they lose the one game to Kansas City without Aaron Rodgers when Jordan Love played. But the Packers on fire. Again, Lamar up in the air, but your thoughts here on this interconference matchup?
Look, the Ravens somehow have held the last 5 opponents to a combined 89 points, which is an average of 18 a game. But when you look at the quarterbacks they've faced, Baker Mayfield twice, Ben Roethlisberger, they haven't been top-tier talent. Now, they're taking on now Aaron Rodgers, and they lost their best cover guy in the secondary, Marlon Humphrey. So now you got basically back there Avery, Young, and Westry. These guys are going to be wildly overmatched. Secondary wasn't good to begin with, but once they lost Humphrey, I'm telling you, this secondary is going to take a huge hit. There's no way they're going to be able to cover Devonta Adams, Randall Cobb. The Packers have way too much here, and they're going to overwhelm the secondary of the Ravens. Now, both Tampa Bay and Green Bay are 10-3, and I refuse to believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to let that elusive Super Bowl ring that he hasn't been able to grab in the last several years fall by the wayside because of a loss to a weaker Ravens team. They're going to score points here. I believe Green Bay will score 27 to 30 points here. They might get back left tackle Bakhtiari, which would be a huge plus for them. And I just don't have a lot of confidence in the Ravens. Offensively, defensively, they might be without their top receiver in Brown. So this is a game where Green Bay should really be able to dominate. It's only a 4.5, 5.5 point game. And Kevin, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Lamar Jackson has not been performing well. You back out that 37-43 performance against Indianapolis midway through the year, and his numbers are downright pedestrian in terms of passing. They're just not good. They don't have much of a running game at all. Their receivers are not great. Fortunately, they do have a top-flight tight end in Mark Andrews, who went off for 11 catches last week and basically was all of their offense in that comeback against the Browns. But Green Bay's a better team.
And I look back at that Dolphin game, too, that Thursday night game, Paul. That's where Lamar Jackson, it felt like kind of went downhill. The Dolphins really stifled him in that game. And that was kind of the beginning of those numbers going down. And you're right about the Baltimore defense. I know that some of the quarterbacks they played, but the defense has not been the problem. The offense just, I don't know where they've been. Now, a few other things I want to hit on. I'll let you go. Number one, I'm assuming you did not make your way out to the Garden for Steph Curry breaking the record, right?
No, Kevin, I'm sitting in a hotel room in San Diego. It would have been a great experience, but no, I didn't make it.
And what's your terrible segue, but any philosophy you have on the Bulls with them starting today, not necessarily like a pick for today or tomorrow, but any philosophy considering you have a lot of players backing out, you have a lot of coaching changes. Do you get into it? Do you think there's opportunities, or is it more of a stay away?
It's more of a stay away for me right now. I'm just going to sit back, watch some of these games. You can play in live wagering, which I feel is the best way to go. But right now, I'm just taking kind of a step back approach.
Paul Bovi, you could check out his picks at Vegas Insider, doing a great job in the NFL. He's at plus 700 on the season. Also, he's third in totals, so he's had a fantastic year in the NFL. You can check him out there, and also on Twitter at Paul Bovi. Paul, thank you so much for the time. Happy holidays. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, Kevin, just to clarify, my regular season NFL record, I believe, is 47-28. So
you're right. You're right. The preseason wasn't kind to you.
No, it wasn't. This was my worst preseason, but I dialed it in the regular season, which I always do. So we're hitting above 60%, well above 60%, and I hope to actually bring that up a little bit and finish out strong.
So to get the right numbers, 47, 28, and 2 in the regular season, plus 1,600, nearly 63%. And you know what that makes you, Paul? Number one among all the handicappers on Vegas Insider for the regular season.
All right. That makes me feel good, Kevin.
So go chill in San Diego, relax, take it easy. It's all you can pretty much do in San Diego, I guess.
That's it, Kevin. It's cold here. I have to tell you, it's like 50 degrees, 48 degrees here. I love it. But I think these people are kind of like out of their element when it gets like this. But for me, it's my kind of weather. And, yeah, I'm going to enjoy it. And just California is a great place. Vegas is a great place. It just got to make the best of where you are. So you enjoy Florida, Kevin, and have a wonderful holiday.
You too, Paul. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Ciao.
All right. There is Paul Bovi right there. And look, the numbers speak for themselves. He did struggle in the preseason, and he admits that. But his regular season record in the NFL, plus 16 units. Like he has had a ridiculous season so far. Nearly 63% he's hitting in the NFL. So check out his picks at Vegas Insider, and good analysis always from Paul. A lot of player breakdowns with Paul. That's the way that he handicaps, and just a great job by him. Now I want to tell you, before we talk a little NBA, and it may rip Brandon State a little bit more. We'll see how I feel. WynnBET. All right, you can download the WynnBET mobile sportsbook app on iOS or Android devices. When you download the WynnBET mobile sportsbook and you're a new patron, you can get a $1,000 risk-free first bet with a $20 minimum first deposit and eligible sports bet when you use the promo code VI bonus. That means if you lose your first wager, you get it back up to $1,000 as a free bet credit that you can use for another bet. And the WynnBET promo code will expire soon, so make sure to grab it while you can. iOS or Android devices must be 21 years or older. That is WynnBET. All right. I'm debating on where I want to go next because let's stick with the NFL, and then I'll get to the NBA. By the way, we have the Bahamas Bowl is underway now from the Bahamas. Toledo, Middle Tennessee State, they're just underway. And then you have the Cure Bowl later, Coastal Carolina and Northern Illinois. Both have double-digit spreads. Toledo, a heavy favorite. Coastal, a heavy favorite in those two games today and a whole bunch of games tomorrow. All right, I want to go back to this for a second before we look at the NBA. And, all right. Just incredibly frustrating when, and I get that when you are wagering money on these games, it's out of your control. Totally understand that. That's the name of the game. Brandon Staley, the head coach of the Chargers, who has some interesting innovations, go for it on fourth down, don't punt, don't kick. I get where you're coming from. I just don't feel like it's absolute. I don't feel like you can do that all the time. Every single time, fourth down, got to go for it. What if it's 4th and 5? Go for it. Now, the situation's called for. Now, a lot of people disagree on the three scenarios. You obviously got to take the fumble out that was inside the 5 because, A, that had nothing to do with the fourth down, and B, Mahomes threw a pick a few plays later, and the Chargers end up scoring. So that kind of cancels out. The opening kickoff taken back deep into Chiefs territory. Guy trips on the turf. That's a killer because he was gone for a touchdown. I don't have a huge issue. If you're going to say to me, gun to the head, Did you like the touchdown or the going for a fourth down or go for the field goal? I like go for the touchdown there because you've got all the way down there. You can say take the points, but you needed to get a touchdown out of that. And the receiver Parham, who kind of a freaky play, he drops the ball, he hits his head, he's taken off on a stretcher. Terrible situation, and hopefully he's okay. But he catches that ball, it's a touchdown, and Staley looks like a genius. Before the half, I'm torn a little bit because I get the going for the kill, and that was more on Justin Herbert than on Brandon Staley. That pass got knocked down. The guy was, I think, who was it? Keenan Allen he was going to throw to. It was open. The guy Sornstrom, whatever his name is, the cornerback came in and knocked it down. So I don't have as much of an issue with that. It would have been nice to take the points considering Kansas City got the ball to start the second half. The one I have the most problem with is the one, the 4th and 2 at the 27. That one, you got to kick a field goal. Got to take points there. Take points, move on, and you know it was all said and done, you would have had to go to overtime. Patrick Mahomes, some of those throws to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce were fantastic. Mahomes had that run at the end of regulation down the sidelines. Kansas City's elite. There's no disputing that. And because me personally liking LA last night doesn't take away from the fact what Kansas City is and that they could be in the Super Bowl again and represent the AFC. But at the same time, the Chargers have to win that game. You score a touchdown with 2 minutes to go up 7. And I don't understand why Staley didn't go for 2 there. If you're Mr. Big Guy, you might as well go for 2. Go up by 9, and then all of a sudden now you're up 2 possessions and you got the game in the bag, basically. But you still couldn't make that stop at the end. When the Chiefs got the ball to start overtime, I didn't think the Chiefs would win. I thought the Chiefs would score a touchdown. I didn't think they'd just go down and kick a field goal. I thought that this would be done with. And Mahomes made big plays. Mahomes is elite. That was that. Killer. Absolute killer. But you talk about worst losses of the season. I had the Bills last week against Tampa Bay. That one hurt, but also they were in a big hole. They probably shouldn't have been in that situation. Chargers were in control of that game against the Chiefs. That's what hurts even more. I think the ones that were the worst, and these are all primetime games, was last night and the Packers-Cardinals over that didn't hit. Packers got down. They had all those shots to get in. They couldn't. Then Kyler threw the pick in the end when A.J. Green didn't turn around. That one really hurt. Now let's look at some of the NBA for tonight. And again, the NBA, a total mess with all this COVID stuff, just like the NHL is, just like college basketball is. That game tomorrow, and I know I'm jumping around, but North Carolina, UCLA got wiped out in Vegas. Now it's going to be North Carolina, Kentucky, because North Carolina was supposed to play UCLA. Kentucky was supposed to play Ohio State. And Ohio State had issues. UCLA had issues. So North Carolina, Kentucky, like, hey, let's go play each other. So they're going to play each other tomorrow, which kind of works out, actually. College hoops tonight. Villanova Creighton's the main game on the board. Big East game. Villanova laying 6 on the road. College basketball, so that's that. NBA tonight. Golden State and Boston up at TD Garden. Warriors laying 3. Warriors continuing this road trip. Now Steph doesn't have to worry about the 3-point record anymore. The Blazers, they're trying to snap a 7-game skid. Hosting the Hornets. They've already lost to Charlotte once this year. Portland laying 3. Actually, I like Portland tonight. I think they bounce back. Memphis is at Sacramento. The Kings, without De'Aaron Fox, they have issues in the protocol or issues with a lot of players in the protocol. Alvin Gentry's not even coaching. Memphis has been on fire without Ja Morant. Milwaukee without Giannis. They're laying 2 at New Orleans. Lakers, no Westbrook. Like that matters. But you got LeBron and AD playing at Minnesota. Timberwolves laying 2. Denver and Atlanta. Hawks have been bad at home recently. That'll be interesting. Denver won at home against Atlanta earlier this year. So that's the main games in the NBA to keep an eye on tonight. And then college football, you got a whole mess of games tomorrow. App State, Western Kentucky at 11 a.m. In the Boca Raton Bowl, New Mexico Bowl, UTEP and Fresno State, 2:15. Fresno laying 12 in that one. UAB and BYU in the Independence Bowl at 3:30. BYU laying a touchdown. Eastern Michigan and Liberty in the Lending Tree Bowl at 5:45. Liberty nearly a 10-point favorite. The LA Bowl, Oregon State laying 7 to Utah State at 7:30. And the New Orleans Bowl, Lafayette, Louisiana Lafayette, Marshall. I like Marshall. That line's dropped. Louisiana laying 4.5. All right, before we get out of here today, I want to tell you all about BetMGM. They're the king of sports books. New players only. Bet $10 to win $200 if your team scores a touchdown. Bet on any NFL money line. And if your team scores a touchdown, you'll receive an additional $200 in free bets. Again, must be 21 years or older. New players only. And eligible in the following states: Arizona, New Jersey, Indiana, Colorado, Tennessee, West Virginia, Iowa, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. Full terms and conditions apply. That is BetMGM. They are the king of sports books. My thanks to Paul Bovi for joining us on today's edition of the Daily Insider. We'll be back on Monday. Dave Sharapan, as he does, joins us every Monday on the Insider to review Week 15 of the NFL. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for tuning in to today's edition. Hope you have a great weekend. And as always, best of luck with your bets.